Game Boy was a must-have for gamers, and games like Pokemon, Mario Land, and Mega Man were some of the best-selling games of the decade. When I was a kid, I played my Game Boy Color more than I played any other system, but all I ever seemed to play was Pokemon or Mario games. I missed out on so many great games in the Game Boy's library, but after going back and playing tons of these games, I've come up with a few of my favorites that have gone under your radar, or maybe ones you just never heard of, and they're pretty awesome games you should check out. So let's kick off this list of hidden gems with number 10, a very fun platforming game, Ducktales 2. And now this is a port of an extremely rare NES game, but the game is very good, so if you want to play it without spending an arm and a leg, I suggest buying it on the Game Boy, or you can even get this on modern systems like the PS3 and Xbox 360 and Wii U, and the DuckTales Remastered Collection. Either way, you can't go wrong with playing this game. You control Scrooge McDuck when you're trying to get as much money as possible while making your way to the stage. The platforming mechanics and controls are very solid. I love the pogo stick he uses to attack enemies. It's a very creative thing. You don't really see a whole lot of games like this. If you're looking for a platforming game that on the Game Boy that is not Mario, this is a solid choice. Next up is a pretty obscure licensed game called Dexter's Laboratory Robot Rampage. And usually this type of game is nothing special, and they were quickly made for kids who are fans of the show. However, there's more behind this game. If you ever played the NES game Elevator Action, Robot Rampage will seem very similar to you. It turns out that the developers, BAM Entertainment, actually licensed out Taito's engine for a Game Boy game called Elevator Action EX that was only released in Japan, which is basically just a remake of the classic title from NES. BAM Entertainment essentially took that game and changed the sprites to characters from Dexter's Lab. The game is an interesting take on an old classic, and it's loads of fun if you're into puzzle games. Now, if you're looking for a fun side-scrolling shooter for the Game Boy, look no further. Solar Striker is one of the better shooters on this handheld. It's a classic arcade-style shooter that's not too harsh in the difficulty department. Solar Striker was actually one of the few shoot-'em-ups developed solely by Nintendo, with the lead designer being none other than the Game Boy creator himself, Gunpei Yokoi. This game isn't too complicated or hard to beat like some of the other shooters, so if you're looking for a casual game to just pop in and play on a road trip or something, this one may be a good one to bring along. Now, this list wouldn't be complete if I didn't talk about at least one RPG. And while there are some awesome Zelda games for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, there are some fun RPGs that tend to be overlooked. Gargoyles Quest is one such game. It's a great mix of an action platform stages and traditional RPG gameplay. There are actually 2 sequels to this Game Boy game on the NES that are way too expensive for me personally. The NES games are cool, like I said, I can't afford them. So if you're interested in getting into this series, I recommend buying the Game Boy game, as it's not that expensive compared to the NES games. Another very unique puzzle game that deserves more attention is a game called Mole Mania. This game is beyond clever. You control a mole who's able to dig holes in the softer parts of the ground and create tunnels to get to parts of the screen that would otherwise be inaccessible. There are also ground barriers underground, so you have to think carefully to reach the end of the maze. The game was actually produced by Mario and Zelda creator Shigeru Miyamoto, so you know this game is going to be great. Now, this next game may not be much of a hidden gem as others on this list because it sold decently and it actually has 3 sequels, but I wanted to feature it for those who didn't dig into the Game Boy library as much back in the day, and they may have overlooked this game and its whole series. The Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle series is a great little platforming game. It has awesome controls and even better physics, and it feels and controls just like you would want a platformer to do. Again, I feel this game was way overlooked due to Mario games being so popular back in the day. I'm guilty of this. I did not look into anything past Super Mario Land 2, and I really should have. But they are actually solid titles and deserve a playthrough. Our next game is called Toki Tori. Now this is a cute yet entertaining puzzle adventure game that gives you control over a little yellow chick by the name of Toki Tori and presents you with a challenge of gathering all the eggs of your siblings that are scattered across various levels. The game starts out with a rather simple setup to get you familiar with the puzzle platforming basics that eventually gives you the abilities and tools to combat the added complexities in later levels. Unfortunately, however, the game was released very late in the Game Boy Color's lifecycle, just before the Game Boy Advance was to be released, so it was overlooked by so many people. But the game was later released on the eShop and even on iPhone, so if you want to play it today, I recommend giving this game a download. Hammering Harry Ghost Building Company is an incredibly weird title for a game, but it is a great beat 'em up on the Game Boy. It is only one plane of horizontal movement, but you can jump and duck and avoid attacks and climb on platforms and do all kinds of amazing things in this game. Your attacks are limited to just swinging your hammer, but along the way you can obtain power-ups to upgrade your weapon to something bigger, giving you more and more range. You clear out enemies as good as you can, but in the end you're just basically trying to survive. In addition to your standard enemies, you also have numerous projectiles rising up and coming at you from various speeds and heights. It's crazy. This game is not just a Double Dragon clone, it has its own style and charm, so if you're into beat 'em ups, definitely give this game a try. Next up we have a game called Shantae, which is one of the best Game Boy Colors ever made, yet it sold extremely poor due to the Game Boy Advance again being on the horizon. This late release game was from Capcom, would not only push the limit in terms of what the aging hardware could do, but it was still one of the most diverse and satisfying portable platformers of all time. The action takes place on expansive levels that do not only scroll left to right, but also up and down. The levels are also incredibly well designed, and the boss battles, as you're seeing here, are super fun as well. This game is now highly collectible and sells for a ridiculous amount of money online. However, it is luckily available on the Nintendo eShop to download if you are interested in playing it. And finally, we have Kid Dracula, which is a spin-off of the Castlevania series originally released for the Famicom in Japan, then ported to the Game Boy in late 1993. It's a pretty standard platformer, but a damn good one. The player traverses through 8 levels of enemies, obstacles, and bosses, gaining new powers along the way, such as homing missiles, shield, gravity reversal, and even summoning bats. All the characters are cute cartoon versions of Castlevania characters, and the game is a total spoof on that series. If you're a fan of the Castlevania series, you should definitely give this game a shot. If you can find a copy, that is, as the game cards are actually quite rare. Alright, so there you guys go, some awesome Game Boy and Game Boy Color games you guys can play to expand your library past the standard Pokemon and Zelda titles. Now let me know down in the comment section below what Game Boy games you played as a kid and which ones you love the most. Love reading your guys' comments on what you guys love to play. Like I said before, I usually played the Pokemon and Marios, but now I'm playing all kinds of other games I've been collecting for the system. It's actually pretty cheap to get out and collect these games, so I'm having a lot of fun going back and playing these. Also, make sure you guys, if you guys enjoyed the video, drop me a like on the video. It helps me out a ton when you guys like and share my videos. Also, if it's your first time on the channel, feel free to subscribe for more videos just like this. I mean, in fact, I've got a whole playlist of rare games and hidden gems videos just like this. Link in the description and the end slate. So make sure you guys are checking that out as well. But remember, guys, it's always K-Mac time somewhere. Until then, take it easy and peace out.